Hey guys, Cloud here, and today I finally have a method that I am willing to share with you guys that is reasonable enough for custom blocks. So here we have some ores and some regular blocks, and let me go ahead and mine it with a golden pickaxe, and I get nothing. Well, that sucks. Maybe it's because I have to use an iron pickaxe or something. Yep, so I get my XP, I get my rainbow item. Now let's mine it with a silk touch pickaxe. Yeah. And we get the actual block, which we can put back down here. And mine it with a regular one. And we get the ore, just like that. So then we also have the regular blocks, so we can mine these too. And don't worry about the XP thing, that can easily be toggled on and off. I just didn't toggle it off for these ones because I was lazy. Alright, so how are we doing this? Some of you have already figured it out because you can see because my frame rate is high. Some of you maybe not, but this is actually using an item frame in conjunction with a spawner block. So I'm going to go over kind of really roughly all the different methods that can be used to achieve custom blocks and tell you why they work, don't work, suck, or why this one's better, because I have exhausted the field. I've pretty much exhausted all options here. I am like 100% tried everything. Trust me, I've discussed it with tons of other people, and we've come to most of the best conclusions here. So there's a couple methods you can use. So one of the methods for creating custom blocks is an armor stand, and obviously an item frame is going to be better than an armor stand because it takes up less data. Another method, well, yeah, I mean, item frames have less MBT data involved with them, and they're more lightweight than armor stands, especially given the fact that they're only at like finite coordinates. I don't know exactly why they're better, besides just the fact that they take less data in your world, but they are actually much more efficient than armor stands. So that's one of the reasons for using item frames. Another method that is typically used is if I do set block here to stone slab, and you can play around with stuff that are impossible. So you could do type double, waterlogged true. So a double slab that's waterlogged can never exist in the game, but it looks like a regular block of stone, and you can retexture this or remodel it. And then when players break it, you can also have a loot table based off of the block state and do some conditionals with that guy. Seems better, less commands, but you also have less flexibility because the block that's under it, you can't really always choose the durability of it. And you're also limited to a very finite amount of these things. Now, the only and you also have this issue of water if you go with the waterlogged ones. So you're very limited to what blocks go underneath that the player breaks, as well as there is one that is a obvious solution that a lot of people use, and that is note blocks, because note blocks can have 900 or a really insane amount of combinations for their block states, because you can change the instrument and the note for it. Right here you have instrument and note, and you can do every combination of those, which turns out to be a large number, over 300. But the problem is in vanilla, we update it every time, so you would be changing the block when you right click it. So that's only useful for like plugins to use fake custom blocks, because you can control whether or not they can update, but not good for vanilla. And then the final method that some people might have heard of before or tried is to use a spawner. And maybe you noticed I'm using a spawner, but that's not the method I'm using. And you put a spawner and you put an entity in the spawner that has the item, and then you blow up the display so that it fills the whole block. And essentially you just have a spawner with an entity in it with an item on its head, and you can play around with some loot tables. Now the problem with this method is actually every time you place the spawner, there's a chance that the model will be slightly misaligned, and you can try this yourself. Sadly, I don't have a version to show you here, but I did try it in the past. But yeah, there is a chance for it to be slightly misaligned every time, and you cannot fix the misalignment unless you exit the world or you type /reload or create some kind of an entity update. And you can't detect when it's happening, so it's just not feasible or reasonable to do. So the final method is item frames. So what you can do with an item frame is you can put an item frame in, I'm in 1.17, but this works in 1.16. So you can put an item frame down on the ground. You can put an item in the item frame, which is an item frame actually, and blow up the 3D model to be the full size of a block. And that's what I've done here. Then you just need something on the item frame block that will not obstruct the air. So let me show you the issue with this method. So if I go ahead and change this block here to stone, you'll see that the thing gets dark. So the only way to fix this is to use a transparent block. So our options are also limited for what we're able to break. Of course, you can use some glow item frames, but then it looks a little bit unnatural because it's glowing. So we pretty much have to stick with some block that's transparent. One nice method is glass, which Mulv described to me. His kind of idea is to use glass, use mining fatigue when you're looking at it to make it harder to break, and then get rid of the glass sound effect by default and reinitiate it when players break actual glass instead of your special glass. The problem with this method is there is a lot of kind of ambiguities here on how to make the player mine glass slower, especially considering how quickly you break natural glass. And you're adding a whole lot more commands, which may give you less efficiencies anyways than what you gain back from using an alternative, which is the current method we're using, which is, again, a spawner that is completely empty on the inside and it doesn't spawn any particles, but it definitely, the spawner has some issues with it being having more MBT involved with it. So it's a little bit less efficient than, well, quite a bit more less efficient than it being a glass block. Now, if Mojang were to add some kind of block that is a full block that is kind of stone that also has no interactions to it, I would 100% use that over a spawner. But we just don't have available we just can't think of a block that matches the criteria that well. I mean, you could use lodestone, but then people could interact using the lodestone because it has a function to it. And you could choose maybe one of these things that don't have a function yet, but they might have kind of a wood breaking effect, which is not ideal. At least spawner sounds a little bit like stone and takes a little bit about the same as some kind of iron block. So yeah, spawners just fit the best, but if you can find another method, it's actually really easy to change. So now let's get on to the actual pack itself. This is going to be kind of a longer video. So the pack is pretty simple. There's not much. You can download it in the description. We have a scoreboard, singular, and then we have 2 functions in main. I'll be changing this from a entity tag to just a single, or I can just do that right now. I was testing some stuff before using glowing frames, but glowing frames just look too weird, so I decided to remove them. So what we do is we look for an item frame that has a tag of unset. How do we introduce this? Well, we use a custom item. So if I do function cb give, you can give yourself one of the stored items. So I'll go with block. So if I give this, it is actually an item frame, which is remodeled. So let me do data get entity as selected item dot tag. So you'll see that when I place this, it will place a item frame that is fixed, that is invisible, that is invulnerable, that is silent, that is facing upwards, and has a stick in it with custom model data 3. So and it also has the tag of unset. So when I detect the thing with the tag of unset, I go to the list. The list grabs its custom model data, and based off of its custom model data, we'll put the different block that it's supposed to be. This has to be hard-coded because then you'll have some kind of recursion loop thingy trying to give yourself an item with an item frame with an item frame with an item frame with an item frame. So you have to stop and put a stick in the item frame instead and then change it later. So the stick is in the item frame, and now we go to which block it is. We saw that the custom model data was 3 because it's a full block, and that's just the thing we have in our resource pack. So we go to rainbow block, and that is our custom model data of 3. So what do? We set the custom block score to 5. So if you set the custom block score, this will have to do with kind of the hardness. You can change the naming convention on the scoreboard if you want. I just didn't want to introduce a new scoreboard. So the way the convention works is leave it blank or put a 0 for it can be broken by anything and you get it. Put a 1 for wood, a 2 for stone, a 3 for iron, a 3 for gold, a 4 for iron, a 5 for diamond, and a 6 for netherrack. So if I change this score to a 6, then it needs to have netherrack to be broken. If I change this to a 5, it needs diamond at least to be broken, or netherite. And if you change it to a 4, then you need iron and above. A 3 is gold and above, and I'll show you how I work in the and above aspect later, but just know that for when you're editing things yourself, trying to add your own. So we give it a score to the item frame. Then we set the spawner. So this puts down a spawner. You can put any block down here. It doesn't matter, but it will affect what you get when you break it. So changing that might be a little bit difficult. And I'll show you where you can change the block if you want, or make it work for other blocks as well. So then we also have this section, which will edit the item frame. And basically it puts, instead of having a stick in there, we put an item frame in the item frame. And that item frame has a name of rainbow block, which I put on hold because that way when you look at the item frame, it doesn't say the name above it, but it's a minor detail. And the item frame in the item frame has an entity tag, and the entity tag is to spawn an item frame with all of our previously stated criteria, and with the tags, and with the item of the stick and the custom model data 3. So here's kind of the recursion, kind of like embedded element, but we have to use the stick so that we can hard code it and we can come to an end. All right, so basically it takes this guy in my hand, it puts it on the ground, and it makes the thing in my hand inside the item frame, and it blows it up. So that's how you put it down. For rainbow ore, it does the same, but it adds a tag called silk ore, and that's just a special hotkey kind of name that lets me know that this thing could either be broken with a silk touch or not, and it actually will affect it. So in terms of this guy, I have a custom tag here, right here, called ore item, and this is the item that you will get if you mine it without silk touch. Otherwise, you get the item back, which is the block itself. So that's kind of why I made the item you get kind of the proprietary kind of nested thing. So like the diamond is inside of the overall wrapper. So yeah, so that's how the ore is handled, and that's it. So that's how you set up a block. Then now constantly we're going to go to that thing and we're going to look if it's air. So this is where like anything that destroys the block that it's in will cause it to think that it broke. So we go ahead and we run destroy. So destroy is kind of complicated. So this moves the fake name to the real name location. So this goes from hold to regular display, just as a prompter, just so you don't have the name when you look at it. Then what you do is we look for an item that has a custom block tag, which is the item that we will transform into our desired item as a drop. And we tag it. That way we can reference it later. Then we store on .dir that entity that we found mined with pickaxe. So it stores custom data. So this custom data comes from a loot table for a spawner. So normally the loot table for spawners is like blank, so it's okay to edit this, which is another reason spawner is nice, because there's less custom things we have to handle, because what you get from it will be like nothing normally, so we're not overwriting a default loot table or something like that. So it's a little bit cleaner because we don't expect to get anything from it. And it has XP inherent in it, which is a little nice, but also bad in the same way. Anyways, so what it drops when you mine it is a barrier, and it sets mined with pickaxe to 0. But if you have a wooden pickaxe, it sets mined with pickaxe to 1. If you have a stone, it sets it to 2. If you have a gold, it sets it to 3, and you can see what I mean by that. And if your pickaxe has silk touch, it adds a silk 1B tag. Okay. So if the score that we put from the MBT that was written on there is less than the required amount, then we kill the item that we were going to transform anyways, which basically means you don't get a drop. And we also kill XP orbs just to make sure. Also, if there is a tag of no XP, then again, we kill XP orbs. We can also add, I guess we could go ahead and do this. Let's change this order just a little bit. So if this criteria is met, then we're going to do tag add no XP. So this is just so if you mine a thing that with a silk touch, you don't get the XP for it. So that's just kind of a side thing. Anyways, let's talk about this. So if you have the silk ore tag, then unless you find a item that you are going to transform that has a tag of silked, which means you use silk touch on it. So unless you find one that has that tag, then go ahead and copy change the item that it's going to drop, like the item in the item frame, into the stored item in the item frame. Okay, and if you have no XP, kill experience orbs. Then also the final step is basically just to copy your item and copy onto the item that you're looking at, and you copy from the item frame's item that it's inside. And then finally, just kind of some extra handling, we go ahead and we grab the custom model data number from that item, and we throw the custom model data number back on with an increase of 1. And I do this because when you get the item as an item form, I don't want you to put it inside an item frame and have it be big. So if I do that, obviously it's going to have some problems. But if I have one that, well, that's just because I got it from here. But if I go into survival and grab a real one right here. Oh, okay, let's put some of these down. I have to grab a real one from like because if I get it from the /give, it'll be kind of bugged. But if I grab it here and then put it down from here, there you go. So now it looks normal, except for the fact that the name is showing, but you can't really fix that. But yeah, so I don't want it to look like blown up. So I want it to look kind of normal. So I just basically have two models. One has the custom display data that makes it look like a block when it's in an item frame, and then the other just is normal. And then we remove the tag of init from the thing we were selecting, and we kill the item frame. So that kind of completes the destroy event. So some obvious modifications we can make here. So if you want to make the block that they break not a spawner, you would have to change it to a regular block and mess with all that and carry over the naming conventions. If you want to add your own blocks, you can just create a new block here, copy this line, put it here, change the custom model data number to the right one that it's supposed to be, change the name path to the right one that it's supposed to be, and then go into here, change the name to what you want it to be, and give it custom MBT however you want. I'm expecting the people working on this are a little bit more advanced in commands and kind of know a little bit more about what they're doing, because it's not a simple thing to do anyways. So let's go ahead and edit this guy. Which one? The rainbow block. Let's do tag add no XP. And we can just kind of make that slight adjustment. And then in terms of the give stuff, that's just a ease of access. I just copy it from this command here, but delete the info here and just copy from entity tag onwards. And that's pretty much all of the system. Some of the nice things about this, though, is that it allows you to expand, especially if you're doing ores. You could keep this ore item tag and then transfer from the ore item tag onto the main item when you smelt it, if you wanted to do kind of a smeltable thing. But that would have to be its own video on its own. But it's kind of a nice structure to start with. That's pretty much all of it, though. So if you want to add your own blocks, you can do whatever. I did the rainbow stuff just because I was kind of lazy. Couldn't think of anything better. And I'm pretty happy with this. I don't know if I will use it in the future, but you can definitely use it. Ooh. It still gave me XP, but yeah. So let's go ahead and break that. And let's go ahead and break that. And you'll see it doesn't give you XP. Maybe this guy's giving me XP because I didn't place it. So let's place it down. There we go. Yeah, no XP. Cool. So yeah, go ahead and enjoy, guys. Download it, use it wherever you want, expand upon it, make your own kind of changes. There is one little touch I'll be adding, which would be right here. So we have to do kill, AE type equals item, MBT equals item tag soaked. I don't know, custom block. There we go. So I'm kind of like getting rid of that in case somebody in survival mines a spawner. You don't need that line if you don't intend for people to mine spawners normally, but it might happen if you're in survival. So let's go into survival, mine this guy, and you'll see that the barrier item doesn't show up anymore, which is just what we want. All right, so other than that, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you thought this was nice. Next video, I'm going to be introducing a method for ore generation. I think I'm gonna try to. So how to put those ores in your world. And yeah, so in terms of what to do on this pack, if you want kind of a challenge, I have a new challenge today. So after looking into it, if I put a stair or slab on the block, it does not cause the lighting issue. So your challenge this time around is to create a custom block that is not a full block. So you can try doing it with stairs or half slabs, but try and create a custom block that's not a full block. You'll have to come up with some kind of rules I mean, if you want to, you can come up with some rules for like the direction that the thing should face based off of the way the player is looking when it's put down. So yeah, come up with, try and create a partial block that is a custom block. So that's all for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.